Okay, good morning, everyone. Today we are talking about the imperfect tense. So the imperfect is going to be our lesson, our grammar lesson for this week. So what is the imperfect? What do we use it for and how do we form it? That's basically what we're going to learn today. So I'm sure you've already heard about the imperfect many times before, because it's like a word or tense that your teachers like to kind of throw at you. Oh, by the way, don't forget to use the imperfect, kind of thing. And most of the time I've seen it for like one or two lessons, and then you kind of moved away from it. So it's a little bit confusing. So let's just focus on the imperfect and why would we need it anyway. So the imperfect is actually a past tense. It's a tense of the past. So when they say you need to use a different time frames, if you use the future and then you use the imperfect, then that would count as one. So that is one of the past tense. We use it to describe what was happening, for example, over a long period of time. What used to happen. So, for example, if you describe a routine. So let's take the first one. For example, so something that was happening over a long period of time. So yesterday I was reading for the whole evening, right? It was for the whole evening. It's a long time. So you're using the imperfect. Je lisais pendant toute la soirée. There you are. Something that used to happen as a routine. So, for example, when I was younger, I used to wake up every day at 6. Then that would be using the imperfect. So, tous les matins, je me levais à 6 heures. I used to wake up at 6. And then you can also use it for something that is ongoing. So, that was ongoing when something else happened. So, for example, I was reading when the door opened. Was reading, you would use the imperfect for it. Je lisais when something happened. So how do we actually form the imperfect? It looks like it's difficult. It's actually not that difficult, but you need to be really clear on the tenses that we've learned before. So there's actually a reason why we started with the present tense, then moved on to the perfect, to the future, and then moving to the imperfect. Everything kind of have a link together, all the tenses. And today we are going to use the present tense to build the imperfect. So to build the imperfect, you're going to take the new form of the present tense. And then you remove the O and S ending, so the ending of the new form, and you add your normal ending. So if you have a look at my whiteboard here, there we go. So you take the present tense. So the present tense, the new form. And then you're going to remove the O and S ending, and then you're going to add the endings of the imperfect. So AIS, AIS, so AIS if it's je, AIS if it's tu, AIT if we're talking about il, elle, or on. I, O, and S, so almost the same here than the present, but you just add an I, which doesn't look that much, but when you are talking and you're pronouncing that I, that makes it very clear it's the imperfect. So that's basically this I here is like basically the signature of the imperfect. That's how people are going to recognize that is the imperfect. So here again, same here, EZ is the usual ending for vous, but adding the I in front just shouts, hey there, I'm actually using the imperfect. And AIENT for ils or else. Okay, so that is basically the endings of the imperfect that you're going to need to learn really, really well, because just like everything else, they're going to be linked with another tense in the future. So first of all, yes, the imperfect These are the endings, so you take the new form of the present tense. I'll just repeat it again. Remove the ONS ending and then add your endings of the imperfect. So I'll give you some examples here. Let's take an ER verb, for example. Yeah, so jouer. The new form for the present tense, nous, how do you say we play? Nous jouons. With your endings here, nous jouons. Right, you're going to remove the O and S and add the endings of the imperfect. So if it's I used to play, that will be je joue, same stem, et with your endings, okay? Tu joues, same stem, and add et, joue et, okay? To pronounce, and yes, it is pronounced exactly the same as this, okay? So for your pronunciation is right, there we are. Okay, so you pronounce it the same as if you were saying E accent, except that it's not E accent. So when you hear someone say je jouais, you need to be really, really clear on the context, because if it's not a native speaker, so native speakers will really make difference in terms of pronunciation between j'ai joué, which is the perfect tense, and je jouais. Okay, so in terms of pronunciation, a native speaker will definitely hear the difference between the je and the je. Okay, but because we are learning French here, sometimes we kind of like get confused between the pronunciation of je and the pronunciation of je. So these ones often gets confusing. Okay, so here you need to be really, really clear in your pronunciation. That here is j'ai joué. So really, there's two E accent sounds, one at the beginning and one at the end. And here is more like a sound and a sound here. Okay, so it is different in terms of pronunciation. And it's really important that you do make the distinction of the pronunciation of both. For the IR verbs, here is going to be the same. So let's take an IR verb. So there are not actually distinctions between the ER, IR, and RA for the imperfect, but I'm just giving you different examples depending on the different groups, just so you have a little bit of experience before you actually do it on your own. So here, finir is the IR verb. The new form would be nous finissons. And therefore you remove the O and S, you have the stem, which is going to be finis, like this. And if you want to say I used to finish, you write je finissais with your stem here and your ending there. There we are. Okay, that's how you are going to form the imperfect. It is really important that you always take the new form, because look at, for example, here, for finir, if you were just taking the je form, so I of the present, je finis, and then you remove your endings, you just have a stem that looks like this, okay? And then your imperfect will be je finis, which doesn't mean anything at all. You're missing the two S. So it's very important that you do not take the je form of the present, only the new form, okay? Only the new form. Very important. Another example that you can have a look at, if you don't take the new form, let's take one of the irregular for fantastic, faire, right? Remember, je fais, AIS, je fais, I do in the present. If you remove the endings, that means you remove the S, and then that would make a imperfect that is like je ferais, And clearly that doesn't look right, right? Je ferais doesn't mean anything. So that's really important. You actually take the new form all the time. Then just thinking about the present tense, remember we had exceptions for the verbs that finish in GER. So that's, for example, manger, okay? Manger, to eat. So remember, for nous mangeons, so je mangeais, let's start from the beginning. Je mange, in the present tense, je mange. You just remove your ER here for the present tense, add your ending, which is I for je. And then for nous, because of pronunciation reason, if we add only O and S, it was nous mangeons. Hope you remember that. So we had to add an E, okay? So just a quick reminder that G in front of I, E, and Y makes a J sound, but in front of a O, A, and U, it makes a G sound. So here, remember, in a present tense, we had to add a E here to make sure we had nous mangeons using the J sound and not nous mangeons. So here it's very important that you actually use the new form, because if you look at the endings of the imperfect, they are starting with A. So AIS, AIT, well, here is sorry, oh, let me erase that. Here is EONS, sorry, IONS, IEZ. So here it's not that important because we have the I in front. And remember, in front of the I, the G becomes J. That's okay. But for the endings that starts with the A here, AIS, AIS, AIT, AIENT, it's important you take the new form of the present, so nous mangeons, because you're going to remove the O and S and you still have your E here. And therefore, when you translate, when you move it to the imperfect, you have I used to eat, je mange, okay? But if you had taken the je form of the present, that would have been je mange, removing the ending here. Your stem would have been just G, sorry. And then your imperfect would have been je mangeais, right? Which for pronunciation reason is wrong. So here again, it is very important to always take the new form of the present tense. And that's it for me. So that there's are not that many irregular verbs in the imperfect as such. Just to know that always take the new form, and then once you take the new form, remove the O and S ending and then add your imperfect endings. There is not that many reasons to actually get confused. So it's really important you actually know your present tense. So two things from me. First of all, if you're not clear on the present, before you do anything else, go back to your present tense, revise your present tense, make sure you understand it perfectly, ask me questions, post it on the group. The Facebook group is here, so you guys can actually post questions and create a community. And there is no stupid question, no silly question. I have a question, just ask it. Someone will be there to answer. And then once you've revised your present tense, go and do your booklet for the imperfect, for the grammar, and then try the exercises, try to apply how to form it, when to use it. And that's it for me for this lesson. Next lesson will be on how to differentiate between the perfect and the imperfect.